Good morning.
Good morning. Today is February 26th, Sunday. It's our last Sunday in February. And our theme this month has been curiosity as a superpower. Today, our title is Curiosity, or Living Curiosity Out Loud. And we're going to begin with an opening prayer. So join me if you would. We come together here and now to acknowledge the power and presence of the one living God. We know this God to be a creative energy. It is omnipotent, it is omnipresent, and it is omniscient, all-knowing. And so as we recognize that this power is everywhere, we realize it is also present within each one of us. It works through our mind. We receive information. We receive ideas from it. And our curiosity always asks for more knowledge, more understanding, more wisdom, more kindness. So we give thanks for our understanding that this energy that we call God is in us as well as outside of us. It is everywhere present. And so we give thanks for knowing that, for that is all knowledge accessible to us. As much as we can attract and draw in. So we give great thanks that we know that our God is with us, in us, as us and without us. And so we give thanks for our minds, we give thanks for our curiosity. We release this prayer and together we say, and so it is.
I think that was the whole lesson.
Thank you. Well, we were at a Quaker meeting place yesterday working on Bob and Guru Nam's latest book with art and haiku. And there was a poster on the wall that I just loved. It was a poem, actually, that our mentor working with us, teaching us how to do this composition for book printing. And the first thing it said in this poem is, the worst thing we ever did is place God up in the sky to be inaccessible to us when it belonged, with us singing, dancing, rejoicing, praying, and with God with us. And so I love that poem. I was amazed at how much we have in common, actually, with their teaching, just from reading the posters on the wall and things. So, curiosity. I realized when I got into this teaching, really, I think it was about 50 years ago now. And I was still in my 20s. I had a young son. I had two young sons. And I went because I was referred actually by my pediatrician who had become a friend. And he said, you ought to go there. You're going to hear about philosophers and this, that, and the other. And it's very interesting. So I did go to the Science of Mind Center in Fort Lauderdale. And I didn't understand much of what they said because it was a whole vocabulary that I didn't know. But it just felt good to be there. There was nothing but positive things said about God and how God is and is to us and is for us. And I just knew I felt good. And for years I had been going to different churches to try to find a place that resonated with my consciousness. That's a word I didn't know either, the consciousness. And that just means your whole being, mentally, emotionally, and in the realm of ideas and spirituality. And so I went for about a year without taking any classes because I wanted to start at the beginning, and I had started a little bit later. And so I wanted to start at the beginning, so I waited a year. And the things I heard in the classes just really interested me, and I was curious. One of them is they talked about the healings that they had had from prayer. Now, there are a lot of religions that have healings that happen from prayer, but nobody I'd ever personally known. And so the minister, his wife, who was I guess she was assistant minister, and some of you may know her. Her name was Arlene Austin now, but it was Arlene Pitcock when I met her. And she had had rheumatoid arthritis that they had discovered when she had babies, and she couldn't hold them. She couldn't hold them. Her hands couldn't hold them, and, and she would drop the babies in her lap, I presume. But nevertheless, they went for all the medical treatment they could get. And she says she's in the medical books for this advanced case of rheumatoid arthritis. And just learning this teaching and studying it, she had a healing. She was just totally well and able to take care of her babies. Well, that made me curious. That was really interesting. And her husband also said that he had had some miraculous healings. His was instant healing from alcoholism, and that occurred at our annual gathering at Asilomar in California, where and you know, for years I thought, oh, he must not have been a bad alcoholic, because he was my teacher, and I just thought he was wonderful, and he healed me instantaneously from a burn in my hand, and I just knew what a powerful healer he was. I thought he couldn't have been a bad alcoholic, whatever that is, you know. I mean, I couldn't have been badly addicted. But I talked to his wife later after he had passed, and it was bad. It was bad. I mean, he would go spend the paycheck at the end of the week, and she might see him a few days later. So it was really a tough case, and boom, he was healed, cured in an instant. We had a spiritual experience, actually, with a big flash of light, and suddenly he felt totally different. And so those things made me curious. I mean, interesting things happened around that church and at Asilomar, and it made me want to know, what is the truth of reality? The reality I had known was just the scientific one, you know, and I wasn't even sure that I believed in the healings that I heard about from other religions and things, because I hadn't seen them.
Reminds me of, I was just watching CBS Sunday Morning. I watch it because I love the program, and I'm also looking to see if my art's going to be on. And I think they showed one of my pieces this morning. And but there was a section on Bella Davis. I don't know if any of you will know her or not. She's a woman of color who actually, with her family, left the South because they were going to hang the family. So imagine that's your heritage. Went to California, and although things were safer there, they weren't good. And she became the very first black reporter for a news network. And it's really astounding and quite a life. She's now 90-something. But the quote that I want to share with you that I think is really great is, don't be afraid of the space between your dreams and reality. If you can dream it, you can make it so. Now that sounds like it came right out of one of our textbooks. But don't be afraid of the space between your dreams and reality. That is such a huge statement. And I thought of that in particular because one of our members and I are working on a book together. The dream is to have this book published. The reality is it isn't yet there. The space in between is where all of the doubts and worries and fears and anxiety and everything else can kick in or not kick in, all of the responsibilities, all of the duties, all of the things. And we become afraid of the space between the dream and the reality, and if not, we're not careful, we stop being curious and we move into what I call a reactive state. And that brings me to the part that I want to share a little bit about, and that is many of us, without meaning to, are not living our lives what I would call a choice life, or the life of decision. We're living a life of fear. And when I say a life of fear, what I mean by that is, if we look at the things that we're doing every day, the question is, are we doing those things because those are things we want to do, desire to do, feel right about doing, have we decided to do, or are we doing those things so that bad things don't happen? And if you're living your life so that bad things don't happen, you're actually living a fear-based life even when you accomplish something. And I've thought many times of things that I've accomplished and thought, wow, thank God I got that done. And what does that mean? It means, well, it could have been a failure. And so was your success an attempt to avoid failure? Or was your success a victory and a discovery? Was it the result of curiosity? And I think the curiosity piece is so important, because to be curious is to set aside or to not be overwhelmed by the fears and the worries and the obstacles, But to stay interested in and stay curious is to stay alive with the idea of discovery.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, we looked up the word curiosity to see. I like to know the word origins
Always.
and
Yeah.
where they came
I
from.
have never been with anybody who was as fascinated with word origins, nor have I ever been with anybody where I've learned as much about words.
And interesting, listen, just flat comes from Latin, and I can't break it down anyway, but it's curiositas, curiositas, curiosity, and it simply means a desire for knowledge and inquisitiveness, just exactly what we think it to be. And yet, how many of us quit being curious? When we learn about life, we get the natural laws down. Gravity's always there. We can't escape it. All kinds of things like that. But when things start happening, like I described earlier, that you can't explain with our physical laws, that really intrigues me. That really interested, probably because I had a mother who was sick for 32 to 42, and I was 10 to 20 during that time. And of course, we did a lot of praying for her to be healed and to be recovered. And it never happened, and it never happened with our best medicine and all of that. And so I think that may be why I was so intrigued when I was seeing healings. And I thought, there's more here than the rest of us know, and I want to know what it is. I remember the first time I went to, and I'm saying this only because not that I can do it or I believe in it, but just that there are a variety of ways that healings can occur. The first time I went to Asilomar, that's the in the Monterey area, Pacific Grove of California, that park, Asilomar State Park, or it used to be a state park.
It's okay.
Okay.
Please don't.
Anyway, I went there dizzy. I had even gone to see an ear, nose, and throat doctor before I went because I would be dizzy when I stood up. And he couldn't find anything wrong. We were guessing it was from my scuba diving, but we didn't know. So I went there, and I was with some people on the grounds, and I stood up and I just went, oh, lost my balance. And these two men that I didn't know said, oh, we can't have that. And they asked me to stand. I think I was touching a tree. And I didn't know what they were doing. They didn't say what they were doing, but I could feel this vibration going all the way down from my head to my feet. So I found out later they were doing something called aura combing. They were just taking their hands and cleaning my aura, which I didn't even know what an aura was then. But when they finished, which was just probably 1 minute, I was no longer dizzy. I was had total equilibrium. And so again, my curiosity, this is nothing we teach, this is nothing we do, but these people did that. And again, another way to have an instantaneous healing. It's remarkable, and it got my attention, and I wanted to know more. I didn't want to know how to do that particularly, but anything I could learn that could result in healing. And I'm not going to go into the story now because I've told it several times, but I did have a marvelous healing for my then 3-year-old son, who had been very sick for a good while, and he had a total healing, was able to go to school with no trouble at all. So
See what we don't know is how much we don't know. And we don't know that there's 1,000 ways to do a thing. One of the things I discovered when we got married was it was always more than one way to do something. I'd always known the right way to do it, and then I discovered another right way to do things, and it blew me away that there were so many ways to do things that with the same end result.
especially when you're my psychotherapy mentor.
Yeah, like really? That's gonna and so
He would tell me to do something and I would do it my way, and he'd be amazed that it worked.
well, not entirely. No, it worked. It worked. It was you were good, because there are so many ways to get a thing, and what we try to do without meaning to is we try to organize things in a way that makes sense to us, without realizing that in many cases we're taking something that was extraordinary and putting it in a box. And once it's in the box, it can no longer expand, or it can no longer reveal to us other things that like itself or that it wants to teach us. A thing that stuck in my head when we started with this topic was curiosity killed the cat. And it's a saying that I'm sure you've heard before, and it's a quiet way of discouraging people from being too curious. But my question is, who would the cat be without curiosity? And
Wouldn't be as playful. Wouldn't be as fun.
the thing that's most interesting about a cat is his endless curiosity, and that endless curiosity is also his teacher. But it's also where the excitement and the adventure in life is. And so when you allow yourself to become curious, you're suspending the worries and the fears and the doubts and all of the good reasons why you shouldn't do this. I was curious when I had a bad tooth infection, or bad tooth. In fact, what had happened is I'd gone to the emergency room. I worked in the emergency room, and I went to the dental area of the emergency room. And I said, Doc, if you're not busy, could you x-ray that tooth? And he said, sure. He did an x-ray of the tooth, and he said, it's really, really bad. You're going to probably have to have it taken out. I said, okay. Now, here's where my curiosity kicked in. There was a man in town who was doing, quote, dental healing. And what was his name now?
I'll think of it in a minute.
Yeah. Anyway.
He sprung that on me.
Yeah. He was doing dental healing. I thought, yeah, right, dental healing at a Unity church. And so I thought, well, I'll go. I was curious. So I went and I listened to his story. And his story was that his life was falling apart and he was in terrible physical pain. He went out to the backyard and he felt struck by what he thought was a bolt of lightning, but it was just light, intense light. And his arthritis was gone. And he suddenly was capable of doing healing. And when he began doing healing, people's dental fillings started changing. That's how crazy is that? And people's dental...
Changing from silver to gold.
Yeah, and he got better.
Not the real gold medal, but gold colored.
Yeah. So I'm curious, and I'm in the circle. I'm still curious. I didn't leave, even though I didn't think this is possible. I'm working in mental health where we already know everything that's possible. We've already figured it all out. We have all the answers. Yeah, maybe not some of them. And so, but I was curious and I stayed in the circle. And when he was done with the circle, he asked each person if they would open their mouths so he could look in it with a flashlight. And I thought, I was still curious. But I wasn't that curious about having everybody else see. So I went to the bathroom. I looked in the mirror and the filling that had been bad was now golden color. And I thought, oh my goodness. And I went back into the room and everybody was discovering their gold fillings and silver fillings or no fillings. Anyway, I went back to the emergency room doc who took the x-ray, and I said, Doc, would you take a look at that tooth again? And he took a look at that tooth, and he said, what did you do? And I said, I didn't do anything. He said, I don't want to talk about it. And for the next 2 years that I worked there, he wouldn't talk to me. He wasn't able to be curious. He wasn't able to look at it and wonder with me or even have an explanation, because what he was saying is, I like how I've got things figured out. I'm not interested in any more learning, which is curious. And so, but what happened was I was curious, and what's even more important than that is I then asked myself, why can't I do that if other people can do that? Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I probably can. So anyway, I went and spent a few days with him in Palatka, Florida, and I came back and started doing dental healing, and people were having extraordinary healings, but not just from dental problems, from cancer and from all kinds of stuff. Did everybody get better? No. Did some people get better? Yes. Did I know who was going to get better? No. And was I an evolved soul that was so spiritual that I could just do? No. Any more than Mr. Pitcock or Reverend Pitcock was a nice guy all the time. We're all channels for divine light to flow through us. We're all capable of having divine and extraordinary things happen to us, even in our lowest moments.
Right.
Which is really, really important, because some of us have disqualified ourselves from the curiosity that would awaken us, because we think, I'm not good enough, I'm not evolved enough, I need to develop more spiritually, I need to read more books. Actually, you need to claim your own spiritual nature and allow it to be expressed and see what happens. You are much more amazing than you think you are, and the problem is that you don't think of yourself as being as amazing as you are.
Now, that dental healer is no longer with us on this plane. Yeah. He's made his transition. He's passed. What's his name? Milton?
No.
Fuller?
Fuller. Close. Fuller. We're going to get this. The healing that I got did not help with memory. Anyway, when I went to see him, I said, he said, there's a certain number of people that after they receive a healing can do the healing. And a number of them can't. And he said, apparently you're one of them. And why can't you? I thought, okay, all I needed was that support. And then I went back, and we were doing a study group at the time. And so I said, I'm going to do a healing for everybody in the group. And everybody had something wrong with them, which tells me something about our friends. But anyway, I did the healing for everybody and came back the next week. And I think nearly everybody had had some sort of a significant event happen as a result of that. And
and many of them with the gold tone fillings.
The most curious one.
They were really champagne colored. They
Yes.
were like a light.
The most curious one was a couple, twins came, and to a seminar that I was doing, and I did the healing work at the end of the seminar, and one of them immediately had gold fill-ins, and the other one didn't, and she was so upset that she didn't have anything happen, and they were driving back to Canada. It was a long distance that they had to go, and I got a message from the second the twin that on the way her fillings had changed. And they now were gold too, and she gotten her healing. But the most interesting one, and this is really important when it comes to curiosity. A reporter came to prove that what I was doing was some sort of charlatan or trickery, and so he didn't have any belief at all in anything I was doing. Nor did I necessarily believe that everything I was going to do was going to work either. I was just a vehicle for this to happen. So anyway, I did the healing for everybody that I normally would do, and I think that was the day when almost nobody had a response except him. He received extraordinary healing. He said, I can't believe this. I said, you need to, because it's happening to you. And he said, I know, but I came here to prove that you were not who you say you are, and I'm the one who got the result. And I said, and I'm doing the healing, and I wasn't sure you'd get anything. In fact, I was wishing you wouldn't be here. Because you're irritating. And he said, that's interesting. So the chemistry of healing doesn't require that everything be perfectly aligned, that everyone be filled with love.
And everybody has total faith.
Yeah, it just means showing up. Yeah. Showing up and being curious and saying, what if?
Now, I want to share a little bit more. Then I would like you to share the story about the message you got on the plane. Willard Fuller.
Yeah,
I was pretty close.
We don't have to go to memory classes after all.
Willard, okay, yeah. Okay, so I want you to think about the message you got on the plane. But we're talking about health here, but I want you to know that these miracles, a miracle is something you don't expect to happen, that are in your favor, come in all areas. It's financial change in your life. It is relationship, love changes in your life. It is, I said financial, right? So we think four main areas of life: health, wealth, love, and creative self-expression. That's your job or your art that you do, your creativity. But those are the four main areas, and you can have miracles in all of those. And you don't have to understand how it happens. It just, you do have to know the what and what you want. So would you share that?
So I was invited to fly, expenses paid, first class, from Florida, I think it was Florida.
To L.A.
To L.A. to do a healing for an entire group. The word had gotten out because I had done a healing for a small child on the telephone who was having surgery, who was unconscious and hadn't been conscious. And I said, put the telephone receiver on the child's chest and I'll do the healing through the phone. And I did that and the child woke up. And that word got around. So anyway, this family heard about me and they invited me to come and do a healing. I'm on the airplane and I'm sitting there thinking, you're a healer. Oh, you're a healer. How should I dress? As a healer, should I wear white? And I'm kind of getting off on the idea that now I can walk a little differently and I am somebody that I haven't been before.
Maybe
and
long white robes.
And people would look at me and say, Bob, is that, oh my God, you're spiritual. And what I heard as distinctly as I've ever heard anything in my head was, you're the delivery man. Someday you'll deliver same day, someday second day, you're the delivery man. Wear whatever you want, like a postal worker. And it was very humbling. I realized. So anyway, I got to L.A. and I was excited. Still, I wasn't especially well dressed, but I got there, and the family then met me with a limo, and I went to the place that they were. None of them in the entire group spoke English. It was an Asian family. They wanted me to do healing for the entire family. I did what I did. I couldn't talk to any of them. There was no translator. I just did the healing that I did. And what I found out was, from one of them that did eventually get back to me, is normally all of them would have been in bed by 9 o'clock at night, and they all danced and partied until 2. And they said they'd never felt so much energy or felt so happy, and some people had different things happen, but the bottom line is that I was going to go to impress myself, and it made no difference. So the language isn't important. Showing up is. stepping aside and saying, I don't have to qualify to be curious. I just have to be curious because I want to be curious, because it feeds me, it grows me, it leads me. And if somebody had told me that the life I'm living right now 10 years ago would be the life I'm living, I would have said no. If somebody told me 30 years ago the life I'd be living right now was a possibility, I'd say, you're crazy. So try not to have those limits set.
So I would like to bring this back to curiosity.
Oh, yeah.
If we had not believed that all things might be possible, we wouldn't have even tried some of the things that we have. So it's so wonderful that people can have open minds and say, maybe I can learn this too. Maybe this can happen for me too. We have to suspend our doubt and be curious and learn all that we can learn. So we urge you to do that. And if you are joining us, you probably already have. And we want you to know that we appreciate you. And I just have to say a final thing.
Yeah.
Guru Nam and I were speaking yesterday about why there is such a big deal about people about to make their transition or die. And it's a big deal because, of course, it's a loss for the people left behind. But it's inevitable. We are all going to make that transition. And the more we can learn about that and be curious about it and be curious about people's experience who have near-death experiences and then come back, that's they die and then they come back. That's a near-death. And they all have glowing things to report about that they never die. Their consciousness is always awake and alert. And if we can do that, we can actually look forward to our transition. We are eternal beings.
Death is not a failure.
Death is not a failure.
Death is a success. And how and when and the way that occurs is going to be different for each person, because each of us came here with a different plan, with a different agenda, with a different chemistry, with a different experience. We're all going to be here the way we need to be here. We're going to leave the way we need to leave, and we're going to continue the way we're designed to continue. Having that in mind changes how we see it, I think, and changes how we are in life. So I would say be curious right up until the end, and then continue to be curious, because it's one of those things that you're never, ever going to be without. So we're going to end with a prayer.
Yes, quick one.
Yeah.
So would you like to do that, Bob?
Yeah. And what I know right here and right now is that all things are possible. They may not be possible in the way we viewed them, but they're possible. So I right now allow myself to invest my energy and my love and my heart in possible, not in impossible. I allow myself to be more curious than I've ever been before, and I smile on the inside and I smile on the outside, for curiosity awakens me to the greater light that is my light, and the light is in all of us. For this I say thank you, and I know that it is done, and we say together, and so it is.
So it is. And so we are going to right now do our offertory affirmation, and we call this our prosperity affirmation, because in order for you to receive more, you have to give more. And we know that many of you give regularly, and we so appreciate your giving to our not-for-profit organization, the Center for Spiritual Living of the Palm Beaches. And say with me this affirmation. You are affirming that my investment today is made with the full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. And so it is. And so we are now closing this screen. You could see that website. That's where you go to if you want to make a donation. And under a button called Ways to Donate.